On the day of our golden wedding anniversary, I stumbled upon a hidden folder in my wife's cloud storage. It was filled with private photos. The woman in them, my wife, was alluring, captured in poses so provocative they stole the breath from my lungs. The photographer was Leo, her personal cameraman, a man a full 30 years her junior. But it was the caption beneath the last photo that truly broke me. A line of text that read, "I'll never let my husband touch me again. My body is for Leo's eyes only." 30 years of my life, of tireless devotion and sacrifice, suddenly felt like a punchline to a cruel joke. I walked to the kitchen, took the pot of bird's nest soup I had woken at 4 in the morning to prepare for her, and poured it down the sink. The viscous, precious liquid swirled down the drain, taking 3 decades of my love with it. Then, I booked a one-way flight out of the country. Catherine's call came, as expected, like a thunderstorm. Her voice was sharp, a command, not a request. "William, where's my bird's nest soup? I've been waiting at the studio for 5 minutes." For years, that tone of voice had been my own personal terror. It would send me scrambling, apologizing profusely for slights I didn't even understand, while she met my pleas with an endless torrent of verbal abuse. Even now, the apology formed on my lips out of pure reflex. It was a chilling realization. I had been conditioned into servitude. I swallowed the apology back down. "I can't bring it," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. "I've already poured it out." A roar of incandescent rage erupted from the other end before she slammed the phone down. Moments later, my daughter, Chloe, called. For a fleeting second, my heart leaped. It had been nearly a month since we'd last spoken. That flicker of hope was extinguished the moment she opened her mouth, her voice a perfect echo of her mother's fury. "Dad, are you getting senile in your old age? You know Mom needs that soup every single day? You're almost 60, acting like a child. The reason I never want to come home is because I can't stand looking at you." My mouth opened, then closed. A bitter taste filled it. The line went dead, and in the sudden silence, a strange sense of relief washed over me. The final tether had been cut. Catherine was a titan of the entertainment industry, a celebrated actress. We had been college sweethearts, inseparable for 30 years. 2 years into our marriage, her stunning looks and raw talent launched her into stardom. There were hard times, of course. A 5-year period when her company shelved her, and I was the one who held her, who weathered the storm by her side. 7 years later, she broke her contract and started her own studio. I remember how she came to me, her eyes pleading. "Darling," she'd said, "you're the only person in this world I trust. Please, be my manager." That single sentence, "You're the only one I trust," was enough. I walked away from a stable, well-paying career and threw myself into learning the business of show. Together, we clawed our way to the top. We won awards, became the industry's golden couple, a story of love and partnership people envied. I was her rock, the steadfast support she praised in every interview. And the most tangible symbol of my devotion? That daily bowl of bird's nest soup. For 30 years, my alarm had gone off at 4 a.m., a ritual I never once missed. Every time she drank it, her eyes would well up with tears. "I love you, my darling," she would whisper. Then, 10 years ago, Leo entered the picture. He was her exclusive photographer, 30 years younger, and from that moment, both my wife and my daughter began to pull away from me. He was youth, vibrancy, everything I was not. It started with a subtle flirtation. When I confronted her, Catherine didn't deny it. She escalated it. Eventually, she fired me, banishing me to the house with the sole duty of delivering her soup. I wasn't even allowed on her sets anymore. If I hadn't accidentally discovered that digital vault of betrayal, I would have gone to my grave believing I was simply a husband who had grown old and boring. But it wasn't just a recent fling. They had been carrying on this affair for a decade. For 30 years, my world had revolved around her and our family. My reward was the scorn of my wife and the disgust of my daughter. The smallest mistake was magnified, dissected, and used as a whip against me. When they finally uttered the words that I was a burden, that they were tired of me, I realized I was tired too. So very tired. I untied the apron from my waist. I went to a high-end department store, a place I'd only ever visited to buy things for them. This time, it was for me. I bought several expensive suits I had long admired. I spent $300 on a steak dinner for one. It was a reckless, vengeful spree, a desperate attempt to reclaim the man I had lost. When I returned home, Catherine was already there. Her face was a thundercloud. "Where in the hell have you been?" she snapped. "Do you have any idea how long I waited?" Because you didn't bring the soup, Leo didn't get his breakfast. He almost fainted on set from low blood sugar. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The soup, my daily ritual of love, was a gift she re-gifted to her lover. A cold smile touched my lips. And how is that my problem? Was I making it for him? She crossed her arms, the disdain in her eyes undisguised. You sit around here all day, living off my money. What's the big deal about making breakfast for Leo? She then narrowed her eyes. And I saw $100,000 charge on the card this afternoon. What did you buy? Have you given a single thought to this family? The absurdity of it was almost laughable. She had forbidden me from working, afraid I would interfere with her affair, and now she painted me as a freeloader. For 30 years, my salary had covered every household expense. Now, spending my own savings was considered reckless. The money in that account is what I saved from my career before I gave it up for you, I stated, my voice devoid of emotion. Why can't I spend it? Catherine was taken aback. The obedient man she knew was gone. She took a breath, reining in her temper slightly. Fine. I'm too tired to argue. Buy whatever you want. It's not my money. Now go cook something. You need to take it to Leo and apologize. She spoke as if it were my obvious and irrefutable duty. I sat down on the sofa and looked at her, my gaze steady. Catherine, I don't owe anyone an apology. Not him, and not you. You weren't careful enough with your computer. I saw everything this morning. Her eyes darted instinctively towards her laptop, a flicker of panic in them. Those were from a long time ago. So what if I wanted to preserve a memory of myself when I was young and beautiful? Why are you being so petty? They're just pictures. She had been the one in power for so long that even her excuses sounded like charity. But I was done believing her lies. And the words that went with them? I pressed on. If I recall correctly, we haven't been husband and wife in any real sense for 10 years. The timeline matches perfectly. I thought my heart was too numb to feel more pain, but her next words were a final, devastating blow. She pointed a finger at my face, her voice dripping with scorn. William, have you no shame? Talking about that at your age. Are you seriously trying to compete with Leo? Can you possibly measure up to a vibrant young man like him? At your age, isn't it perfectly normal that I wouldn't want to be with you? The blame, so deftly shifted onto my shoulders. I couldn't help but laugh, a hollow, bitter sound. You're right. It is normal. I understand. Who doesn't prefer youth? I met her gaze, my voice solid and sure. So, let's get a divorce. You can go be with your young man. Just as the words left my mouth, the front door opened and Chloe walked in. She immediately launched into a tirade. Dad, you're old enough to be a grandfather and you're talking about divorce? Aren't you embarrassed? I know about Mom's photos. What woman doesn't want to remember when she was at her most beautiful? Just because you're old and can't perform anymore doesn't mean you can deny Mom her own pleasures. The disgust on her face was a perfect mirror of her mother's. You've always been ashamed of me as a father, haven't you? I said calmly. Once your mother and I are divorced, you can have a father you actually like. Her eyes flashed with hatred. And who will take care of us when you're gone? A man as talented as Leo can't be stuck at home serving us. Serving us. The word landed like a physical blow. A lifetime of labor, reduced to servitude. Chloe, I began, my voice thick with a sorrow that felt ancient. When you were 3, you fell so ill the doctors gave up hope. I stayed by your side, day and night, until you recovered. When you were 7, you were taken. I took 3 knife wounds getting you back. On your 16th birthday, you made a wish. You wished that I would always be happy and healthy, so I could watch you grow up. Tears blurred my vision as the warmth of those memories collided with the icy reality of the present. Why are you bringing up all that old stuff? She snapped. I was a kid. Weren't you supposed to do those things for me? You're my father. The words caught in my throat. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Never mind. I finally managed. When the divorce papers are drawn up, you just need to sign them. You can have Chloe. I don't want her. Catherine began to scream at me. Fine. Don't come crawling back to this house. Let's go, Chloe. We'll see how long it takes before he's crying and begging us to come home. They slammed the door behind them. And in the ringing silence, I felt a profound sense of release. It was finally over. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without setting an alarm. The lawyer delivered the divorce agreement the next morning. I signed it and left it on the coffee table just as Catherine and Chloe returned. They weren't alone. Leo was with them. Don't think for a second I came back to make peace, Catherine sneered. I promised Director Lee we would do a family interview for his new project. He'll be here any minute. I frowned. Director Lee was a good man. When I was just starting as Catherine's manager, He had been the one to connect me with industry veterans who taught me the ropes. I couldn't let him make a wasted trip. I agreed. When Director Lee arrived, he gestured for us to sit on the sofa. Leo, you can get the camera set up. Let's get started. Leo, who had been sitting smugly next to Catherine and shooting me triumphant glances, sulked off to fiddle with his equipment. It was supposed to be a family interview, but Catherine and Chloe sat as far away from me as possible. Director Lee, sensing the tension, tried to smooth it over with a laugh. Catherine, why don't you and Chloe sit next to William? We need to project an image of a happy, harmonious family, right? Catherine, ever conscious of her public image, grudgingly moved closer, pulling Chloe with her. Catherine, William, the director began. What is the secret to maintaining such a loving and stable family for over 30 years? Both women shot me an icy glare, clearly expecting me to concoct a lie for them. In their eyes, there was no harmony left in this house. My one-sided devotion, I answered slowly and clearly. Director Lee's eyes met mine with a flicker of understanding. Catherine and Chloe's faces darkened. Catherine, Chloe, you can't look so grim, the director prompted gently. It won't look good on camera. They tried. For a full 10 minutes, they attempted to force smiles, but their expressions remained stubbornly hostile whenever they looked at me. Finally, Leo put down his camera and strode over. Director Lee, he said with a smug air, why don't I sit next to Catherine? They're both comfortable with me. My presence will relax them. I won't show my face, I'll just help set the mood. Catherine's face lit up. She patted the cushion beside her before the director could even respond. Uncle Leo, you should sit in the middle. Chloe chimed in. We can just edit you out later. Leo shot me a look of pure triumph as he swaggered over and sat between them, physically pushing me to the outskirts of my own family. I was an afterthought, an island half a meter away. Director Lee sighed, clearly exasperated. Fine, we'll fix it in post. He turned back to us. A question for the couple. Looking back from your youth to today, what is one major event that remains deeply etched in your memory? Before I could answer, Leo spoke up, his voice ringing with false sincerity. The most memorable thing for me is how Catherine has brought me birds' nest soup every single morning for 10 years, waking up before dawn to make it because she knows I have low blood sugar. It's incredibly touching. As he spoke, he intertwined his fingers with Catherine's. She smiled at him, a tender, loving expression I hadn't seen directed at me in years, and ruffled his hair. It was my pleasure. I felt a cold laugh bubble up inside me. In 30 years of marriage, she had never once shown me public affection. If I so much as touched her arm in front of others, she would hiss at me later, accusing me of being reckless, of giving the tabloids something to write about. Yet here she was, in front of a respected director, holding her lover's hand. And Chloe beamed at Leo, as if he were her true father. Director Lee sighed again. Leo, how are we supposed to film with you sitting there? Even if we edit you out, you can't be answering the questions. Leo leaned into Catherine's embrace. I'm so sorry, director. It's just that I'm so used to being with them. I guess I got carried away and slipped into the leading man role by mistake. It won't happen again. He was apologizing to the director, but his eyes were locked on me, filled with mockery. William, aren't you going to say something to defend him? Catherine snapped at me. He was only trying to help because you were just sitting there like a stone. Now he's getting yelled at. Do you have any conscience at all? Forget it, Mom, Chloe added with a disgusted look in my direction. Let's just have Leo do the interview with us. We can just digitally replace Dad's face with his later. It's not like Dad has anything intelligent to say anyway. Leo, nestled in Catherine's arms, smirked at me. Oh, I don't know. I'd be worried William might have a problem with that. What right does he have to have a problem? Catherine declared, clutching Leo protectively. Director, let's do as Chloe says. We don't even need to edit it. Leo has done so much for this family over the years. He's practically a member of the family. Interviewing him is the same thing. She had, in one fell swoop, publicly excommunicated me. Director Lee looked at me, his expression full of pity. I stood up, my movements calm and deliberate. Director, please excuse me from the rest of the interview. It seems they have everything they need with Leo. Catherine, the divorce agreement is on the table. I've already signed it. Remember to add your signature. I'll be leaving now. Catherine's face contorted with fury. She pushed Leo away and grabbed my wrist, her voice a harsh whisper. William, are you insane? Director Lee is famous for despising infidelity. If you say this in front of him, what will he think of me? It could ruin my career. A genuine laugh escaped my lips. So you've known all along what this was. I looked at her. Don't worry. He's not that kind of person. Besides, like you said, I'm old. It's only natural you'd want someone younger. Everyone can understand that. Chloe rushed over. Dad, don't you care how people will laugh at you, getting divorced at your age? Where are you going to find another woman like Mom, willing to support you for decades? The unspoken threat was clear. Don't be an ungrateful fool. Leo sidled up, his tone oozing false concern. That's right, William. Why fight with Catherine? It's not like you're young, like me. Who's going to want you now? For the first time, Catherine and Chloe turned on him, shooting him cold glares. Leo, go back over there, Catherine hissed, glancing at the director. This is a family matter. A look of shocked disbelief crossed Leo's face as he retreated back to his camera. Catherine turned back to me. William, think this through. If you divorce me, you lose everything. The money, the status, all of it will be gone. It was a threat disguised as a final plea, but my resolve was forged in iron. For 30 years, I never gained any glory from your status. I have nothing to lose. Catherine, could it be, I said, a malicious glint in my eye, that you're actually afraid to see me go? As I'd hoped, the suggestion sent her into a rage. Afraid to lose you? William, your narcissism is astounding. At your age, what could you possibly have that I would miss? Divorce. We are getting a divorce. Think carefully, Chloe added, her eyes filled with scorn. If you leave, I'm not going with you. Don't come crying to me when you're old and lonely, begging me to fulfill my filial duty. I felt nothing. Okay, I said softly. Catherine strode to the table, signed the papers with a flourish, and threw them in my face. We'll be at the courthouse tomorrow morning to file. When I packed my things, all I had was a small suitcase containing a single, hand-knitted scarf and a worn envelope. They were the most important things I owned. True to her word, Catherine was there the next morning, and we finalized the divorce without delay. Chloe never once looked at me. That evening, I saw on her social media that she had thrown her mother a lavish freedom celebration party. Clutching the scarf, I boarded the plane to Berlin. I opened the letter and read the final line, written in a delicate, familiar script. My dearest Will, Dusk Avenue. I will always be waiting for you there. 30 years. I wondered if she still would be. In Berlin, I first went to a cathedral I had always dreamed of visiting. Inside, a young couple was getting married. Before Catherine and I were married, I had suggested we do it here, in this sacred place, to say our vows before God. We would kiss amidst the cheers of our loved ones. But she was always too busy, her career at a critical stage. A wedding was out of the question. I had dutifully buried my own desires, but now, watching this joyous scene, the old longing returned with a sharp pang of sorrow. Perhaps Catherine had always known this day would come, which is why she refused to make a vow she never intended to keep. Next, I went to the East Side Gallery and walked its length. When I came upon a familiar painting, a face, soft and slightly blurred by the passage of time, surfaced in my memory. 30 years ago, standing right here, she had tugged on my sleeve. Excuse me, sir, this might be forward, but I see you admiring this piece. Could I possibly hear your interpretation of it? Only later did I learn that the signature in the bottom right corner, Evelyn, belonged to the young woman standing before me. A faint smile touched my lips as my fingers traced the outline of the envelope in my pocket. After 30 years, could you possibly still be waiting? I stopped at a small shop and bought a pearl hair clip, the kind Evelyn had always loved. On my way to Dusk Avenue, my phone rang. It was Catherine. She sounded awkward, stammering for a moment before getting to the point. That film project with Deputy Director Wong. How far along were the negotiations? Even after she had banished me from her work life, she still had her assistants send all contracts and proposals to the house for me to handle. I'm not sure what you mean, I said, confused. I handed over all my pending work to your assistant before I left. Her voice suddenly turned sharp and biting. Don't you understand why I'm calling you, William? You need to come back and explain it to me in person. It was bizarre. For years, she couldn't be bothered to discuss work with me directly, always using her assistant as a go-between. Now, she was demanding my return. I hung up the phone. The car arrived at Dusk Avenue. I sat on a bench across the river, the chilly Berlin air biting at my cheeks. I arranged the scarf around my neck, then rearranged it, dissatisfied. Finally, I draped it over my lap, making sure it was conspicuous. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Chloe. Dad, stop being so childish. Mom's been in a terrible mood these last few days. You can see the stress on her face. Just come home. We don't mind having you back. By the way, where did you put that company contract I asked you to look over? The same clumsy excuse as her mother. I had given her that contract weeks ago. I deleted the message, blocked both their numbers, and turned off my phone. A gentle breeze blew across the river, carrying some of my sorrow. With it, the Berlin winter was setting in, and I sat there as the bright day faded into a deep twilight. The sky grew dark. She didn't appear. My fingers were numb with cold. I gathered the scarf, preparing to leave and try again tomorrow. Then, a voice behind me, one I hadn't heard in 3 decades. It was older, huskier, but vibrating with an unmistakable, joyous excitement. Will, is that you? My hand trembled. I turned around slowly, stiffly, and saw the face that had been etched into my memory. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She rushed towards me, her steps unsteady, and threw herself into my arms, her warm tears soaking into my coat. Will, she sobbed, it's been 30 years. I've finally found you. 30 years ago, I had come to Berlin as an exchange student. Evelyn and I met at that gallery. We talked for hours about art, about life, and quickly fell for one another. But I only had a year, and after graduation, she was meant to return to her own country. I saw a future filled with impossible obstacles and was too afraid to confess my feelings. The day before I was scheduled to leave, she asked me to meet her on Dusk Avenue, saying she had something important to tell me. I knew it was a confession. I was ecstatic, but then the fear returned, the thought of the thousands of miles that would separate us. I became a coward. I didn't show up. I blocked her number and flew home without a word. The guilt of that decision haunted me for years. I often wondered what would have happened if I had been braver. By the time I worked up the courage to try and find her, her number was disconnected, and all leads went cold. I forced myself to accept the consequences of my cowardice. Eventually, I met Catherine. Not long after my wedding, Evelyn's letter arrived. We were a story of missed connections. When I had wanted to call, her number was gone. When she finally found a way to reach me, I already belonged to someone else. Now, after 3 decades, we stood here, holding each other as if our lives depended on it. I gently wiped the tears from her eyes. Evelyn, I whispered, my voice trembling. Have you been well? She shook her head fiercely, choking back a sob. Not at all. I have sat here, on this bench, every day, waiting for you. I was beginning to lose hope, to think I would never see you again. I smiled, stroking her hair. You haven't changed a bit. We talked for hours, catching up on the years we'd lost. I couldn't believe it. She had never married. For 30 years, she had kept her vigil on Dusk Avenue, hoping for my return. You foolish woman, I said, my heart aching for her. What if I had never come? She laughed, a beautiful, clear sound. But I knew you would. You always keep your promises. I'm sorry it took me so long, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I won't make you wait ever again. We visited our old university, walking hand in hand through a campus haunted by the ghosts of our younger selves. Look, she exclaimed, pointing to a large oak tree. We had lunch under that tree. I told you I was tired of German food and wanted to try Chinese, and the very next day you brought me a feast you had cooked yourself, even though it made you late for class. The memories came flooding back, vivid and real. I remember, I laughed, and I remember us sneaking onto the roof so you could paint my portrait, only to get chased off by a security guard. Students walking by smiled at us, whispering about what a lovely old couple we made. The next few weeks were a blur of happiness. Evelyn, it turned out, was now the curator of the very gallery where we had met. Pick any painting you like, she declared grandly. I'll buy it, and we'll hang it in our home. The more time I spent with her, the more the wounds of the past 30 years began to heal. But happy times fly by, and soon a month had passed. My visa was about to expire. You could marry me, Evelyn said one evening, her tone light, but her eyes serious. Then you could stay in Berlin. I had never imagined I would marry again in my twilight years. But this woman had waited for me. How could I possibly ask her to wait any longer? I agreed. We were returning home from the registrar's office, the marriage certificate in my hand, when we saw them. 2 unwelcome guests standing at our door. Catherine and Chloe looked haggard, their faces etched with worry. It's all your fault, Mom, Chloe was saying, her voice strained. You were too harsh with him. Now that he's gone, everything is a mess. Catherine was thinner, with new lines of exhaustion around her eyes. That's enough. Were you any kinder to him? You'd better soften your tone and be ready to apologize if we want him to come home. They saw me then, and their faces lit up with relief. But the moment they saw Evelyn by my side, Their expressions turned to stone. William, Catherine said, her voice dripping with acid. No wonder you were so quick to divorce. You had a replacement lined up all along. I ignored her, intending to lead Evelyn inside. But Chloe blocked our path. Dad, please, come home with us, she pleaded, her voice desperate. Mom's studio is in chaos without you. And I messed up a contract at my company because you weren't there to review it. I almost got sued. Evelyn glanced at me, and I squeezed her hand reassuringly. Wait for me inside, my love. I'll just be a minute. She nodded and slipped into the house. I left the door slightly ajar. Catherine's venomous gaze followed Evelyn. What is your relationship with her? It's only been a month, and you've already abandoned your family for someone new. I never knew you were so desirable, William. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Catherine, we are divorced. My life is no longer your concern. Dad, Mom is just upset, Chloe interjected, trying to play peacemaker. But she has a point. Look, we came all this way to find you. You've made your point. Now let's go home. Catherine took a deep breath, composing herself. I fired Leo, she said, her voice softer. Is that what you wanted to hear? You win. I promise I will never see him again. Is that enough? Stop this ridiculous drama. I will overlook this. Indiscretion of yours. Just come back with us. I held up the marriage certificate so they could both see it clearly. I can't go with you. I'm married. Disbelief washed over their faces. Dad, how could you? Chloe cried, tears welling in her eyes. Are you really abandoning us? After 30 years together, you can just throw us away like we're nothing? Catherine was speechless for the first time in her life. William, you're serious? If this is about Leo, I told you it's over. How can you be so cruel? It was laughable. When they no longer needed me, they cast me aside. Now that their lives were falling apart, I was suddenly indispensable. Their love was conditional, and it had arrived far too late. Catherine, Chloe, my decision to divorce you was never about Leo. It wasn't a childish tantrum. It was about 30 years of being looked down upon, of being verbally abused. I've had enough. The best thing for all of us is to go our separate ways. Please, do not bother me again. I closed the door, shutting them out. Their knocking and crying followed, but I ignored them. A few minutes later, a neighbor came out and sent them away. Life with Evelyn was quiet, peaceful, and filled with a profound sense of contentment. She learned to cook my favorite Chinese dishes, helped me pick out new clothes, and we attended every art exhibition in the city. Our love, once a seed planted in youth, was now blossoming in the autumn of our lives. One day, we went back to the cathedral, this time to feed the pigeons. A wedding was taking place, and Evelyn paused, watching with an envious light in her eyes. She squeezed my arm. If I said I wanted a proper wedding, would you think it's embarrassing at our age? I laughed, realizing we had been thinking the same thing. Not at all. You waited 30 years for me. A wedding is the least I owe you. We scheduled it for the following week. When I saw her step out of the dressing room at the bridal shop, wearing a simple but elegant white dress, she looked as radiant as she had 30 years ago. Will, she asked shyly, is it too much? For someone my age? It's perfect, I said, taking her hand. You are as beautiful to me now as you were then. As we left the shop, hand in hand, we ran into Catherine and Chloe once more. They had not, it seemed, left Berlin. In fact, I soon discovered they had rented an apartment next door to ours and had been living there for a month. Catherine's eyes filled with disbelief. William, this joke has gone on long enough, she said, her voice cracking. How can you actually go through with this? What about me? What about Chloe? Dad? Chloe sobbed. Mom and I know we were wrong. Please don't be so heartless. Please don't throw us away. How many times must I repeat myself? I said, my patience gone. Will? Catherine cried, her voice breaking completely. We grew old together. You can't do this to me. After you left, we realized we can't live without you. Their words, which might have once moved me, now felt hollow and manipulative. Evelyn squeezed my hand. You are upsetting my husband, she said to them, her voice firm. Please leave now, or I will be forced to take more drastic measures. Who do you think you are? Catherine spat. I stepped in front of Evelyn, shielding her. My cold glare was enough to silence them. Stop looking at us like that, Catherine pleaded. Divorce this woman and come home. Chloe and I will forgive you for everything. That will never happen, I said, my voice like ice. Now leave us alone. Later that day, I received a call from Director Lee. He told me that in their desperation to find me, Catherine had breached several contracts, incurring massive fines. Chloe's mismanagement had led to a major lawsuit against her company. He then told me he had a way to ensure they would return to their country and never bother me again. I knew what he was implying. I said nothing, and my silence was its own consent. The next day, I heard frantic packing sounds from the apartment next door. Before they left, they taped a note to my door. "We'll be back for you." I tore it into pieces and threw it in the trash. 3 days later, the entertainment news exploded. Director Lee had released the unedited footage from our family interview. The evidence of Catherine's affair was laid bare for the world to see. Her reputation was destroyed overnight. Soon after, news broke that Chloe's company was being liquidated due to her incompetence. Evelyn and I were married in the cathedral, just as I had always dreamed. As we said our vows, a flock of white doves circled overhead. In that sacred place, before God and our friends, we pledged our lives to one another. I drew her close and kissed her forehead. "Evelyn," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "thank you for waiting 30 years. I am no longer a coward. I will never leave you alone again." The confession of love that had been silenced 3 decades ago was finally declared for all to hear. We walked out into the cheers of our loved ones and made our way to Dusk Avenue, where we promised to spend the rest of our days together. I never saw Catherine or Chloe again. I know they returned once more. Perhaps they saw the large, red symbol of matrimonial joy we had hung on our door and finally understood. They left 2 small notes. One read, "Dad, I'm happy you finally found happiness." The other, "Will, I'm sorry. I wish you the best." 2 separate notes. I remember Director Lee telling me that mother and daughter had turned on each other, their relationship irrevocably broken. Now I believed it. I took the notes and threw them in the trash, leaving only the symbol of our new life on the door.